What is up, everyone? Welcome to another Megami Tensei challenge run. You know, of all the challenges I've done on this channel, I've mostly been sticking to the newer post-Nocturne SMT games, so I'm gonna do something that I haven't really thought much about up until right before I started work on this video. I'm going to be doing a challenge for one of the older SMT titles. The original, in fact. Well, not the original, but the game where Atlus really started to take the series down its own path as a video game series that's separate from the books. And really, the only challenge I could think of to do here is to beat the game without demons, so yeah, that should speak for itself. No using demons in battle, but I'm still allowed to fuse them and use them for skills and stuff as long as it's outside of battle. We're also not going to be playing the Super Famicom version translated by Aeon Genesis, we're instead going to be playing the more recent PS1 version translated by Tom. Now, this version is pretty much identical to the Super Famicom version aside from it having slightly better graphics, but what's interesting about this translation is that its terminology is unlike any of the other translated MegaTen games, where items have different names and demons' races are what their Japanese name literally translates to. Some people aren't big fans of this, but honestly, I think it helps it stand out from the other versions, and I wouldn't mind seeing him take this approach to SMT2 and if he ever decides to translate those. But for now, let's get into the game. Because this is the PS1 version, I have two difficulty options, so naturally I go with the harder of the two, Expert Mode. Although this is actually a bit misleading, Expert Mode in this version is basically the difficulty of the original, while Normal Mode is more of an easy mode. Either way, I choose Expert and the game now begins in this trippy dream sequence. After declaring my name, I'm given the choice of how to distribute my stats. One thing that may catch players who are new to the series off guard is that in most of these older games, the protagonist can't use magic, so whatever you do not go for a magic build. Power is the way to go, although it's not a bad idea to go for speed either if you want a gun-focused build, but the best swords in the game do way more damage than the best guns, so if you ask me, power is the way to go, so I'm going to be mostly focusing on that, while occasionally dumping my stats into vitality and speed. The other stats aren't all that important, at least not for me, but yeah. A little further into the weird hallway, and we meet the Law Hero, who I name Akechi because, I don't know, he kind of looks like him, I guess. And for his build, I just make him a straight-up mage, since despite being human, your allies can still use magic, and their builds are going to be very important since they're going to be all I've got for this run. Even further in, and we meet the Chaos Hero, and keeping the tradition of naming my characters after Persona characters, I name him, Ikutsuki. And for his build, I make him more of a balanced attacker, since it seems appropriate given how he's complaining about wanting more strength, but we'll get to that soon. We keep moving until we get to a spring where some woman named Yuriko says she's destined to be our eternal partner. From experience, anyone who says that to you upon first meeting them is bad news, so not wanting any of that, I frantically run away and am then woken up. We get an email from a guy named Steven saying that demons are awakening and will start attacking humans, so we need to use his demon summoning program to fight them. So we download it, and since our computer hasn't blue screened yet, we can conclude that this program is not a virus and go about our day. Hey, the apocalypse may be upon us, but at least our computer isn't infested with viruses right now. Anyway, we make a quick run to the mall to get some coffee for Mom, and while there, we run into a man getting jumped by a demon. I'll just, take this knife off your hands if you don't mind. I already did everything my mom asked, so I might as well go back to sleep. And what do you know, we have another dream sequence. This time we meet the heroine who is about to be sacrificed. We save her by calling her Yukiko. Don't ask. And much like the Law Hero, I make her a straight-up mage, giving her a nearly identical build. Now, the name I gave the heroine is also the name of my neighbor, but she doesn't have any recollection of that dream. Then she blows us off, so I just head back to the mall, and it looks like the email was right. Demons are everywhere. I buy some defensive equipment from the armor shop, then head to this barricade at the southwest corner of town, where an old man sends me and my two dream sequence friends through a building where we're about to fight a boss. But we're pulled out because we're too weak. So I just head back home, but some cops are waiting there to arrest me. I knew I shouldn't have emulated that 30-year-old NES game. Well, this isn't actually jail. It's a hospital, and in here we meet the Law Hero. He helps us break out, but before we can leave, we have to fight a boss, Orias, and this is a pretty straightforward boss. I mean, Most of the bosses in this game are, and there's not much strategy besides just keep attacking him with whatever you got. For the protagonist, literally all I can do is use my normal attack, but the Law Hero does have some spells, Zan and Dia. Law Hero's Zan is doing 30 damage, which is pretty good, while my basic attack is doing around half that. Another thing with bosses in this game is that they don't have much HP. His normal attack isn't strong, and besides that, he only has weak ailment moves, which don't pose a problem and don't even hit that often, and it only takes a few turns to bring him down. We escape and then make a stop at the mall where we save Chaos Hero from a street gang, and recognizing us, he joins our party. Might as well head home now, where Mom greets us, but things seem awfully suspicious. And it turns out she was eaten by a demon, who has to be fought as another boss, Amano Tsukugami, who is also pretty easy. He leads off with Tarundo, which lowers everyone's attack, but it's just physical attack in this game, so it doesn't really matter much to Law and Chaos Hero. Chaos Hero specializes in fire magic, and despite him being underleveled, he's still doing decent damage with Agi. Everyone is doing a total of just over 60 damage each turn, which is almost enough to take him out in 2 turns. His attack is weak, and aside from that, he just uses Makajama, which doesn't hit anyone, and yeah, pretty short and easy fight. Well, my mom may have just died, but Law Hero comforts me by telling me to stay strong. Thank you, Law Hero. I'll do that, and I'll also try not to feel bad. Well, from that boss, we got the ID card, which lets us get into the Echo building. If this place looks familiar, that's because it's where we were sent by that old man we met at the barricade. Now we're high enough level to actually beat the boss. Supposedly. The boss here is Douman, and he's definitely a step up in difficulty from the last 2 bosses. He has more HP than the last 2 bosses combined, a stronger attack, better offensive spells that hit everyone in the party, but worst of all, he knows Shibabu. You know, that skill that binds people, he has it, and bind is arguably the worst it's ever been in this game, because it lasts indefinitely. So he can bind you, and you can be out of commission for the entire rest of the battle, and afterward, because it lasts after battle, and there are no items that heal it. It has to be cured with a spell that none of my party members have. What you're supposed to do here is take Pascal the dog with you, and fuse him with a demon in the Cathedral to create Cerberus, basically giving you a high-level demon to use as a crutch for this part of the game. But Cerberus is a demon, so that's out of the question. Without him, it's just luck. That's all it is. If he binds 2 or more of my party members, that's an automatic reset, unless they miraculously recover, which can happen, but don't count on it. And like I said, Douman's attacks are decently strong. His normal attack is doing about 26 damage, which may not seem like a lot, but I don't have much in the way of healing items, and Law Hero's Dia isn't helping as much as it should. My protagonist's sword attack is only doing 10 damage, while Law and Chaos Hero spells are doing 26 to 30 damage. While I frequently need to heal, I also need to keep up the pressure if I want to be able to beat him before he goes for and hits Shibabu, so I can't really afford to stop attacking. Since I have a good amount of ointments, I just have the protagonist act as my healer by using those, but every turn, he's still able to do more damage to me than I'm able to heal off, so I just have to treat it like an endurance round, and hope he goes down before I do, and this still isn't even taking into account his Shibabu. There are several attempts where things are going great, until he binds my entire party, and then sends me to the game over screen. So not only do I gotta be fast, but I also gotta be lucky. And after probably a couple dozen or so attempts, I am able to do it. After several turns, he binds my protagonist and Chaos Hero with Shibabu, but at this point, the fight has already gone on for a while. So instead of resetting, I see if I can clutch the battle, and what do you know? The Law Hero dodges a second Shibabu and finishes him off with a Zan. Well, there's nothing left to do here except take the teleporter to another part of the city, where there are some easy battles against orcs, and once we're back on the map, we can head to Shinjuku Mall, a place I highly recommend you use a map when you navigate because it is extremely easy to get lost here. I upgrade my equipment here, and while doing this, I realize that I have a weapon called the Triple Staff, which is better than any of the weapons for sale, and probably would have helped in the fight against Douman, but whatever. I equip the protagonist with an MP5 so that I can start blasting enemies with guns now, and I load it with shotgun shells for extra damage. It's best not to question how that's possible. Now, in this mall, there are 3 bars that represent 3 alignments in this game. If you go to the neutral one, you'll find Yuriko, again, but if you give neutral answers to both of the bartender's questions, he'll give you a matchbook that lets you go into the basement where you can meet the heroine, the leader of the resistance. There's a guy named Gotou using demons for selfish reasons, and the American military is also here enforcing martial law. Oh, also the law hero's girlfriend, my neighbor, got kidnapped. I could have found that out by visiting her house, but I kinda forgot. We agree to help her stop them, but then Yuriko shows up and kidnaps her, and takes her to the Tokyo government office, where she's to be executed, and we gotta stop it. Now, here we don't have to fight a boss, but we do have to fight a bunch of waves of enemies. The first one is against 8 zombie cops. Law and Chaos Hero both know their multi-target spells now, and those combined with the protagonist's gun are able to take them out in just one turn. Up next are 8 zombie soldiers, and they all get melted by Chaos Hero's Maha-Agi in one hit. After that, I have to fight 4 zombie soldiers and 4 lemurs. The zombies get taken out by Maha-Agi again, except for one because it missed him, and the lemurs survive because they resist gun and they're not weak against wind. But we caught them off guard, so they can't move this turn. We then take out the lemurs next turn, but the zombie soldier survives. He then goes for a weak attack, then survives again the next turn, but guards, and then we finish it off. After that, we have one more wave against 4 lemurs and 2 ghouls. The lemurs get taken out by the combined efforts of Chaos Hero and the protag, while the ghouls survive the Law Hero's attacks. They paralyze the protag, but quickly get taken out on the next turn. We have saved the heroine. Now, to advance the story, we need to talk to the heroine in the bar, but before I do that, I have the option to confront Ozawa and fight against one of his demons, which is pretty easy. So we talk to the heroine, and the Law Hero goes to save his girlfriend, while the Chaos Hero goes to help in the fight against Ozawa. Then the heroine joins the party. She's a pretty good replacement for the Law Hero, but now we only have 2 party members, one of which can't even use skills. First, we head to the American Embassy, where I like how the soldiers here have a different font for their dialogue to imply that they can't speak Japanese very well, if at all. But anyway, their ambassador, Thor Man, wants us to defeat Gotou and bring peace to Japan. Okay, that sounds like a plan, so we then head to Gotou's headquarters, where he says his piece that demons are shielding Japan from a missile attack and asks us to join him. Well, that's cool and all, but that still doesn't justify what you've been doing, so yeah, let's fight. Of course, we have to fight 2 waves of enemies before we fight him, but at least there's only one of each. The first is against a Picasa and a Nu, neither of which put up much of a fight. Then we have to fight a Picasa and a Baycock. The Picasa is no big deal just like before, but the Baycock has Mudo. But as long as that doesn't hit, we'll be fine. So it takes a couple of tries, but I do make it through. Now, Gotou has his normal attack, duh. Critical, which is a slightly stronger physical attack. Diorama, a healing move, which he thankfully rarely goes for. And Shibaboo. And in my first attempt, he goes for this on the 3rd turn, and it lasts the rest of the battle. So once again, it's just another stupid luck game. I have to hope he doesn't heal or use Shibaboo. At least this time I have better equipment. The protagonist's attack is doing 17 damage, but it can hit up to 3 times, which is pretty good. And he's actually able to do more than the heroine, because the heroine's only damaging attack right now is Mahazio, which is a multi-target move that costs a lot of MP, but does have a high chance to shock, something that will be helping us much later. But for now, I only occasionally attack with her, and instead mostly use her for healing. And on my second attempt, I get lucky enough to make it through without getting hit by Shibaboo. So with Gotou defeated, we go back to the embassy to report to the ambassador, Thor Man, and he reveals that he is in fact Thor, the Norse god, working for the Abrahamic god. It's SMT, so it's best to not try to make sense of it. But he asks if we're still planning to help him, and you're kinda trying to nuke Tokyo, so not really. And now he has to be fought. So, Thor is a bit stronger than Gotou, and as you'd expect from the God of Thunder, he specializes in electric attacks. Remember what I said a minute ago about electric attacks having a high chance to cause shock? Well, that's going to be kind of a problem here, although I usually move before him, so it's actually not too bad. Oh, and he may not know Shibaboo, but he does know Bind Voice, which binds one target. Though apparently Thor isn't actually immune to electricity, he only resists it, meaning he's vulnerable to getting shocked, but I didn't actually know that when I was playing, so yeah, I instead just have the protagonist attack while the heroine shoots her gun and heals. Thor spends most of the battle going for electric attacks. Mahazeo doesn't do a lot, but it hits both of us, and Zionga usually does about half to each of us, but it only hits one of us. Once again, it's just a test of luck. I keep attacking and healing while hoping he doesn't use Bind Voice or go first and shock me, while also hoping that my attack hits 3 times. And after about half a dozen attempts, I am able to deal enough damage to beat him before he can finish me. But that doesn't stop him from dropping the nuke, so yeah, nothing I can do except wait for Tokyo to be destroyed. You all know what to do in the event of a nuclear attack. Put your head between your knees and kiss your butt goodbye. But we don't have to do that because the heroine casts Rapport and sends us through this weird PS1 era FMV spiral effect. And we wind up in the future from SpongeBob. But we're not alone. There's a guy named En no Otsuno, but also the Law and Chaos heroes. Now, I haven't talked much about the random encounters because they haven't really been a problem up until now. There is a huge spike in difficulty with the random encounters in this part. It doesn't help that I start out by myself, but even after I get my guys back, it doesn't get much easier, and very often I find myself having to negotiate my way out of battle. Anyway, according to the guy here, the world is now a ruined wasteland, and it's been that way for 30 years. He offers to help us get back if we get him some soma from the spring, so we navigate through the maze to the spring and bring some back. But because this guy is a greedy, overindulgent heavyweight, that's not enough, so we have to go back to the exact same spring and bring it back to him again! And now he wants me to go and get some weapons from some strangers that have invaded the realm. And he wants me to do it by myself. Oh, this is not gonna be good. I'm barely scraping by these enemies as it is, but now I'm supposed to do this without any party members? Well, through a lot of resetting and RNG manipulation, I make it to the first stranger. Now, you'll have to fight one or both of these guys depending on your alignment, but because I'm still neutral, I have to fight both of them. I get to the blue one first, and I get absolutely destroyed. A single attack from this thing does 78 damage. That's almost half of my health. My attacks, just 10 per hit. Keep in mind, my strength is almost maxed out. It's over 30. So, yeah, this is just not going to be possible right now. Though, it's not like there's anywhere I can go to buy healing items or equipment. All I can do is every JRPG fan's favorite pastime, grinding. This thing is level 32, so I grind all the way up to level 30 and put all of my stat bonuses into Vitality. This not only increases my defenses, but also my HP, and brings my max HP up to almost 300. I attempt the fight again, and yeah, it goes much better. That is until he uses Shibaboo, because I guess Atlas didn't think there were enough bosses in this game that had that skill. So again, it just mostly comes down to luck. Only this is the worst case of it because I'm still only doing 10 damage per hit. So if I'm lucky, I'll be doing 30 damage each turn, but most of the time it only hits once or twice. His strongest attack is Agi Lao, which does around 120 damage, while his normal attack does around 60. He also has Maha Agi, which only does 35, and this is the attack that I want him to go for the most. In most cases, I'll be able to go first, but sometimes he'll go first. So just to be safe, whenever my HP gets close to 120, I have to heal. And thankfully, I have a good amount of jewels on me, which are beads in this translation. They heal me completely. So, I just gotta be lucky and ration out my jewels as best I can. And after a few tries, I do take out the mysterious blue stranger. For beating him, I get a new weapon, but I have to be Chaos Aligned to use it, so yeah, that's kind of unfortunate. But anyway, on the other side, I have to fight the mysterious Red Stranger, who is a bit easier, mainly because he doesn't have freaking Shibaboo, and his attacks aren't as powerful either, but other than that, he plays very similarly, although it does take more items. In fact, I run out of jewels and have to resort to using a Soma to heal at the end, but it works out. And this time I get a weapon that I can't use because I'm not law aligned. Whatever the case, they're both gone now, and I can return to Enno Otsuna, who gives me the Crescent Longsword, the neutral exclusive weapon, and opens up the exit. But I can't leave without fighting Zenki and Goki. And my party gets absolutely destroyed. Mainly because my Law and Chaos heroes are still kind of underleveled. So I grind them both up to level 25, and just like I did with myself, I dump nearly all of their stat bonuses into Vitality. So now, they actually have enough HP to take more than one hit. And yeah, the fight goes much better after this. In fact, I think I may have grinded a bit too much. Both of the heroes now have their medium damage attacks, and they're doing a lot of damage. Law Heroes does over 80, while Chaos Heroes does 75, while my protagonist is doing 26 with each hit. And Zenki gets taken out on the second turn. The first turn, Goki goes for Tarukaja, and then attacks on the second, and his attack does a good amount of damage, almost 80 to be exact, and it can hit up to 3 times, so that's kind of a problem, but he doesn't have much HP, and I'm able to take him out before he can take any of my guys out. We finally make it outside and see that, yeah, Tokyo has definitely changed. Though for a demon-infested post-apocalyptic nuclear wasteland, it doesn't look as bad as I thought it would. No, the real disaster here is finding out from a hobo that all the money we've been hoarding up is now worthless. So you can forget about any plans to buy stuff with that money you got from the SpongeBob Future Realm. As we walk around, I keep getting these visions of some girl calling for help, and each time this happens, I lose some HP. And we also find out that there's a war going on between the followers of the Messiah faith and the Gaians and Ozawa's private police force, who now rules Shinjuku. Speaking of Shinjuku, the underground mall is still intact, and if you go to the Resistance's headquarters, you'll find out that Ozawa is holding some guy called the Soul Diver prisoner, and Ozawa uses him to brainwash people into following him. That definitely sounds like something worth putting a stop to, and after finding a bit more about Ozawa from the locals, we can head to his office to confront him. But he summons Takeminakata, and we can't take him as it is, so we have no choice but to run away. Chaos Hero then gets the idea to become more powerful by putting the power of demons directly inside him. We take him to the Cathedral of Shadows, where he'll fuse with a random demon in your comp. My only ones are Nekomata and Gandharva, who kind of force their way into my party during negotiation. I like how the Nekomata winks at me before getting fused, but anyway, the Chaos Hero comes out in what looks like a cheap ninja costume he got from Party City. Well, he may look stupid, but he's also significantly more powerful, so we go back to rematch Takeminakata and immediately start blasting. The protag is doing 22 damage with each swing, while Chaos Hero is doing well over 80 damage with Agilao, and Law Hero is doing 75. Although, the boss is actually doing quite a lot as well. He's another one of those enemies whose normal attack can hit multiple targets, and it takes out Law Hero from full HP in just one hit. Normally, I'd reset here, but I decide to press on. We continue swinging at each other, and close to the end, he brings Chaos Hero down to pretty low HP, but before he can move again, Chaos Hero finishes him off. Ozawa then begs for his life, and I'm just like, nah. But despite that, Chaos Hero thinks we're too soft and leaves the party, never to join again, which sucks. So it's just me and Law Hero. We go and free the Soul Diver, but what now? Well, in the upper floors of Shibuya, there's a very familiar looking girl being held captive, and a demon has invaded her mind. Sounds like a perfect job for the soul diver, so we go bring him over from Shinjuku, and also there's a guy at the bar who will buy your old currency off of you. That's pretty cool, but anyway, the soul diver helps us get into the girl's mind, and now we've got another confusing maze dungeon to go through. Although, it's actually not as confusing as you might think, and it doesn't take long to reach the boss, Arachne. Now, I'm a bit worried now that it's just me and the law hero, but I soon find out there's hardly anything to worry about. Arachne's normal attack is not doing a whole lot, and neither is her Zanma or Mahazanma. However, she does have Marin Karin, which charms one target, or as the translation puts it, takes them captive, so it's kinda just another battle of attack and hope she doesn't go for it situation. Thankfully, she barely has any HP, and before she can, we take her out after just a few turns. So the boss is defeated, but of course I'm not automatically transported out of the dungeon, I have to backtrack all the way through it. But once we get out, this girl is indeed revealed to be the heroine. And while she doesn't remember anything from before the cataclysm, she does remember us, so she joins, which is great, and now we're back to 3 party members. Well, that's all there is to do here, so I guess I may as well continue exploring. Over at Roppongi, there's a weird-looking barrier blocking the way, but we can still sneak in through the underground tunnels. We get in, and it is awfully suspicious. There are no random encounters here, which I certainly won't complain about, but there aren't a lot of NPCs, and all the shops are abandoned. In fact, if we go to the bar, we run into Law Hero's girlfriend, who is being held captive in a cell. She tells us that 2 counts used magic to resurrect this dead town, and they turned her into a body conian, but because she kept her memories of when she was human, they locked her in here. The only way she could be freed and move on is if she were given a revival incense. Wow, that's actually really sad. But not as sad as the fact that revival instances are expensive, and if I do it, I don't get anything besides a bunch of points toward law, which I don't even want, so no, I ain't helping. You can stay in here and rot, you little bitch.
Hit the road, Jack. Don't you come back no more, no more, no more, no more. Hit the road, Jack. And don't you come back no more.
What you say?
So, in the basement, we meet Alice and her caretaker, Count Red. After giving Alice a hexagram, she asks us to die for her, which, no, I'm not doing that. So she gets upset and then sends Count Red at us, who is Belial, and none of our attacks put a scratch on him. We need to go further in and get the glancing pot. Now we can actually stand a chance, and by that I mean he just gets sucked into the pot. Then Yuriko shows up and asks for it. Okay, I mean, it's not like I need it anymore. But that's not all that happens here. Count Black isn't too happy about us killing his friend, so he tries to steal our souls, but Law Hero pushes us out of the way, and Jesus, look at those hands, oh my god. So we chase him down and expectedly fight him as a boss. Now, this wouldn't be too much of an issue, if not for the fact that he knows Mudo, which actually has a pretty high chance to hit in this game. He's normal attack, he's also pretty strong. In fact, a single hit takes away exactly half of the heroine's HP, and it can hit both of us. Those are the only attacks of his that are cause for concern, but still. Thankfully, heroine knows Tetraja, so I make sure to set that up at the start of battle. And after that, it's mostly just my protagonist attacking, with her using Zionga and healing. Although, it's at this point I begin to realize how overpowered electric attacks are in this game, because Zionga has a very strong chance to shock the target, which prevents them from moving for 1 turn. So, as long as she moves before he does, there's nothing he can do, and I can just keep doing this over and over until he's dead. I like to call this the shock lock strategy, where you can prevent enemies from attacking by just spamming Zionga and shocking them until they die. Unfortunately, we couldn't save Law Hero, but because he was such a good Christian man, he gets invited into heaven. Now that Roppongi has been saved, we can go into this building in the northern part of town that was previously blocked off, and it leads us to a tunnel with a 4-way intersection. This place sort of acts as a hub that connects the other parts of Tokyo. The first place I want to check out is the Tokyo Metropolitan Police Department, which is up to the north. The encounter rate is even more frustratingly high than it's been in other places, but at least all the enemies here are weak against electricity. And at the end, we meet Dr. Emmett Brown, and we have a boss fight against a horde of robot enemies, and then... oh my god. It's...
Where did you learn to fly?
and it's pretty easy. It specializes in electric moves, so you know what that means, but it's also not immune to them, and because I move first, I can once again shocklock it to death. Or not, because the heroine actually runs out of MP before it goes down. This puts me in kind of a difficult position because I'm not only unable to use Zeonga, but I'm also not able to heal with magic. So I have to rely on items, and that's on turns I don't get hit and shocked with electric moves. And even then, this thing's normal attack is decently strong. From here, it's just another endurance test, but I'm able to hold out long enough to bring him down. My reward is a memory board, which I can take to Steven, and he'll increase the number of demons we can hold. It's not necessary and kinda useless for this run, but I'll take the experience. So now I head to where I actually need to be, Ginza. Guarding the tunnel I need to enter, there's a devil summoner who demands 10,000 Maka to pass. I tell him to shove it, and now I have to fight hordes of his demons. The first one, they all get vaporized by Mahama. Up next is 8 Baycocks, and it's the same deal. The Lockeys I decide to actually take down with attacks, and while they're not strong, there is 8 of them. I just shoot them with my new Browning M2 that I got from the Ginza weapon shop, while the heroine zaps them with Maha Zeonga, and they all go down easily. So I follow the tunnel to Shinagawa, and this is the headquarters of the Messiah faction, the faction that represents law. And to move on, I need the 4 Gates orb, which I have to get from this devil summoner standing around who makes me fight another horde of demons. The first wave is against a bunch of Nues. They are weak against guns, so I just melt them. Up next are some Sawo Bakus, and these things are a bit harder. They resist most of my attacks, so I just try to shocklock them as best I can, but against 8 enemies that only works so well, and it takes a few turns of auto-battling to bring them down. Lastly, I have to fight some Barbagazis. Now, those Sawo Bakus drained most of my heroine's MP, so using the last bit I have, I cast Mahama, and what do you know, it takes out 6 out of 8 of them. From there, it's just slowly pummeling them to death until they get taken out. So I get the orb, and now we can head on over to the guy in headquarters at Ikebukuro. Chaos Hero is here and warns us not to go further, which we ignore, and he then takes us to be tried by Yama. Now, what happens here largely depends on your alignment. If you're law aligned, he'll just sentence you to death and throw you in prison, while if you're chaos, he'll let you go. I'm still neutral, so I get a choice. He asked me to help him stop the completion of the Cathedral, and if I say yes, it shifts me toward chaos, and law if I say no. I've pretty much decided at this point that I want to go chaos, since that's the one ending I haven't done in this game yet, so I say yes, and he lets me go. Now, the downside of choosing this option is that I miss out on 2 bosses that give a lot of experience points, so I spend a bit of time grinding here. Now they want me to head on over to Tokyo Destinyland, but we can't go straight there. Cerberus is blocking the way, and the only way to get him to move is by giving him a golden apple, which we get from Ladon in Ueno. And with the shocklock strategy, this boss is a complete joke. He may look strong on paper, in fact he has a pretty good amount of HP, and his attacks are among the strongest of any of the bosses we've fought so far, but all he has are damaging moves. No stupid ailments or buffs or anything like that. And again, this is all assuming he's going to even be able to attack, which is pretty much only when I get an unlucky miss or my Zeonga doesn't stun him for whatever reason. I slowly but surely chip away at his health with auto battle, and just before the heroine runs out of MP, he gets finished off. So I get the golden apple, give it to Cerberus, and now I can cross the bridge to Destinyland. Here we meet the Chaos Hero again, who has found himself a partner, and this dungeon is basically just a weird maze of teleporters and pitfalls. One thing that's interesting about it though is that there are these squares that test your luck. By that, I mean they actually test your luck stat, and if it's not high enough, you'll get a status ailment. It's not a big deal, but even if you've been completely neglecting luck up until now, there is a total of 10 luck instances here, which should get you high enough to pass most, if not all, of these tests. At the end, we meet Echidna, one of my favorite demons from classic SMT. She informs us that the Messians are planning to summon God and impose his rule on everyone. She asks us to help her storm the cathedral and put a stop to it, and defeat the angel that organized the whole thing in Shinagawa. So we agree, and we head on over. Now, during my second visit to Shinagawa, I do something that I completely forgot to do while I was here earlier, and that is get the Kusanagi sword. This sword is decent on its own, but what makes it important is what I can do with it through sword fusion. By fusing it with Sylph, Undyne, and Salamander, I can turn it into the strongest sword in the game. It does take a while to get these demons, but trust me, it is going to be more than worth it. And I think our friend Haniel will be a good guinea pig to test it. Just look at that damage. That is much more than I've been able to do so far. And this thing hits 2 to 4 times. That is insane. I think it goes without saying, but Haniel doesn't hold out for very long. I go back to report to Echidna, and she tells us to meet up with the rest of the Gains at the Cathedral to prepare for the final assault. However, before I do this, I want to officially be indoctrinated into the Gain cult. I do this by heading over to Ueno, where I meet Louis Cypher, who shows us to Yuriko, who is actually Lilith, and isn't too happy about the fact that I chose the heroine to be my partner, which, I mean, yeah, she's been in my party this whole time, but I don't recall ever romancing her. But then again, it's not like I would choose you over her, but she says we gotta die, but changes her mind, and Louis just kinda shrugs it off. What was I doing? Oh yeah, at the top floor of Ueno, there's a Gaian priest who baptizes us. This alone doesn't do anything, but after grinding up to level 65 with nearly max stats in strength, vitality, and agility, and with the heroine being maxed out in both magic and vitality, they open up the locked door that contains the Skyfiend equipment, some of the best equipment in the game. Now it's time to head to the cathedral to meet up with the Chaos Hero and get the job done. He tells us to enlist the help of the 4 Heavenly Kings, which reside at these red mansions spread out around town that you might have noticed while exploring. Although, hopefully you didn't actually wander into any of them because the demons there are balanced for this late part of the game. So I go in and talk to them, and I don't have to fight them or anything, they just join. But once I have them all, it's time to report back to the Chaos Hero. But before you talk to him, make sure you've done everything you need to do in Tokyo, because, well, once you talk to him, this happens. Yeah, Tokyo gets flooded, and you can't explore it anymore aside from the very few places that aren't fully submerged. I go back to report this to him, but okay, apparently I need to actually leave this island before I can tell the Chaos Hero what happened. So I need to get a Pokemon that knows Surf, and there's one right here. After reporting what happened, he tells me I need to go to the Tokyo government office and recruit Ravana. And this office is on the other side of town, so I have to tread a lot of water. A lot of water. Whoever at IGN said Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire had too much water obviously never played Shin Megami Tensei. So I go there, and this encounter rate is really starting to get on my nerves. I've been tolerating it up until now, but here they've cranked it up to a borderline unbearable level. I mean, look at this. Look at this! But whatever the case, Ravana joins, and then I have to cross over to the other side and fight Vishnu in a Christian chapel. Only in SMT, ladies and gentlemen. And with the Hino Kagutsuchi, this boss is a complete joke. My attack alone is doing 159 damage with each hit. I can't shock lock him because he's immune to electricity, so I just have the heroine spam Megiddo instead. He attacks, but I dodge nearly all of these attacks, and he goes down in just a few turns. So I go back to report to Chaos Hero, but when I get back, he's already gone ahead with the plan. Now, this central area of the cathedral is a massive maze. I don't have to explore it, but it does contain some decent loot. Although, this is where I reach my breaking point. I just cannot handle this encounter rate, especially when most of the demons I encounter are weak and barely provide any EXP or money. I need a demon with a stoma, but there are only 5 demons that get it, 3 of which are law aligned, meaning I can't use them because in order to use skills, demons need to be summoned, and you can't summon demons that are of the opposite alignment, so I have to go with either Orthrus or Salamander. Well, after an unhealthy amount of messing around, I'm able to get Orthrus by fusing Griffin from recruitable demons in the area, and then ranking him down by repeatedly fusing together Knight, or Noct Fiends as they're called here, together to make Urthus, and rank him down to Orthrus. It's tedious, but man oh man is it worth it. I feel like I just put out a fire in my soul. I could finally explore the dungeon in peace. So once I get all my exploring done, I go to the center underground to catch up with Chaos Hero. Then head to the bottom of the basement where on the way down we're interrupted by Chaos Hero's girlfriend, who reveals herself to be Yuriko. So do I get to fight her this time? No, I guess not. I'll be honest, I'm kinda starting to regret going Chaos because in this path, you just skip so many bosses, but it's too late to turn back now. Anyway, at the end we meet Ashura, who wants us to gather materials from Ashtaroth, Auriok, and Surt, so I gotta backtrack up through the dungeon to get them, then go back to deliver them. And I get the Devil Ring, which Ashura warns me not to overuse. Now I can finally head to the upper levels of the cathedral to face the angels. The first one we have to fight is Uriel. Uriel is also immune to electricity, so he can't be shock locked. So I just have the heroine use Megiddo. He hits me with that cool summer breeze, which barely puts a scratch on me, and then he's gone. The next one is Gabriel, and this is the only boss in the late game that's even mildly challenging. Why? Because he's immune to physical moves, so I can't obliterate him with the Hino Kagutsuchi, but he's not immune to electricity either, so I can shock lock him. Since my sword doesn't work, I just have the protagonist shoot him instead, but I don't actually have the railgun equipped on him because I gave it to my heroine, so I'm only doing a combined total of around 35 damage each turn. For the late game, that's pretty pathetic, but as long as he's getting shock locked, he can't do anything. So I just auto-battle him with this strategy until the heroine runs out of MP. I restore her MP with a Soma, and then do it again. It does take a while, but shortly before running out of MP a second time, I finish him off and end the battle. Up next is Raphael, who is immune to electricity, but not immune to physical, so I can just slash at him for 180 damage per hit, and yeah, very difficult. We continue to make our way upward, and we get to the part that requires us to have the Devil Ring. This door here won't budge, not until Chaos Hero puts on the Devil Ring and opens it, but it makes him feel so powerful that he goes crazy and disintegrates. I probably should have told him about the side effects. Law Hero is also here, now reincarnated as an angel, and we have to fight him. Alright, let's see if he's immune to electricity. He is not. Alright, auto battle, do your thing. Shing, psh, psh, zoo, shing, psh, psh, zoo, shing, psh, psh, zoo, psh, psh. Yeah, he's dead. Alright, only one boss left. The final boss of the Chaos route, and that's Michael, who we fight at the very top of the cathedral. And he's pretty easy. Yeah, he's immune to electricity, so no shock locking this time, but I'm still doing a huge amount of damage as ever. And while he's doing considerably more than the other Archangels, it's still not a lot. In fact, all of his moves are attack moves, so I don't have to worry about any ailments here. I just go all out with auto battle. I figure I just stop and heal whenever someone's HP gets low. However, apparently I pushed the cancel button at the wrong time, so I continue to auto battle him after I want to stop, and this results in the heroine getting taken out. I do have plenty of revival items, thankfully, but when an ally gets taken out in this game, they lose all of their MP. So I then use a Soma on her, and now we're back in business. Although, this time since the heroine is doing nowhere near as much as the hero no matter what, I instead just play it safe and have her cast Medea every turn. I turn on auto battle again, and even with this weak healing move, I'm able to heal off most of, if not all of his damage while I swing at him for massive damage. He has 10,000 HP, so it does take a while to bring him down, but before too long, I do. We take the staircase to the roof, and Louis Cypher reveals who he truly is. Lucifer, big surprise. We may have succeeded in bringing chaos to Tokyo, but God still hasn't been defeated. To defeat him, we have to play the next game. Except this ending isn't canon because that's the neutral ending, but yeah. There you have it, everyone. It is more than possible to beat Shin Megami Tensei 1 without demons. And yeah, it was a bit easier than I thought it was going to be. I mean, I guess I should have seen this coming. SMT1 is one of those games where your human allies will always have significantly higher stats than the demons, but it was still an interesting run nonetheless. Maybe I'll do this for SMT2, but I'll probably wait for the PS1 version to get translated if that ever happens. But as always, be sure to rate, comment, and subscribe. Be sure to check out my other links in the description, and until the next video, I will see you all later.